That's
So since that time, what have been particularly formative events for you all?
Well, I think, I know it'll take 6 years to get through all this, but, this story, but I just want to say that one of the major events for us was before the religious houses were established, and that was in '66 when we went on the last, what they were calling research trip, research trips. And we, along with Joe and Carol Pierce, they were married by this time, went to the Middle East. And that was a huge trip for us. And
Arab world.
the Arab world, right? That was the category. And you know, I thought when we first got assigned to that, oh my, of all the places in the world that we could go, this is sort of the bottom of the list as far as my interest was. But it was a wonderful trip. And we went to every Arab nation except Iraq. They were having a cholera epidemic. And the Sudan. And
Sudan was borderline as whether or not it was really an Arab country.
yeah,
That was
half of it was. So we went to all of the other Arab nations, and it was just a stunning trip. And
we did a lot of research ahead of time, and then we stopped in Europe several places to get contacts from people in London and Berlin, and anyway.
we went, I won't tell you everything, but while we were in Jerusalem, this was just before the 3-day war. 7-day war. Whatever day.
The '67 war, just before the '67 war.
And we were in Jerusalem, and we had met the fellow who was the head of the, call it East something Council of Churches. Anyway.
East Jerusalem? No.
Yeah, we were in Jerusalem, and he lived there, and wasn't the Middle East Council, but
yeah,
was it?
Middle East Council of Churches.
Anyway, so he was head of their refugee service, and no, that was all right. Never mind. He set us up with a couple of guys who worked for the United Nations Refugee Service. It was called UNRWA. And the Pierces went, just remember the name, but we went to Ramallah and just had an amazing venture there. And
what'd you do?
We met this. He introduced us to a physician there in Ramallah, and Ramallah was right on the border
But
with
it was
Israel.
still in the Arab.
Yeah, and at that time it was still a part of Palestine. Anyway, so he took us out to a refugee camp and walked us through it, and then took us to the hospital, the clinic there in the camp. And we went in, and he sort of walked us through and back to a back office, and we sat down. And here were 3 or 4 other physicians and the guy who had brought us out there, I don't know. Anyway, it was never clear to us who these were, but on reflection, years after it, I think that they were just really the local, probably intelligentsia of the PLO, which was then, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. And they said, well, what do you want to ask us? Well, we didn't know we were going to want to ask them anything, I mean, this is just unfolded. And so we chatted for quite a little while there. Anyway, it was just an amazing event. And when we first arrived, they brought a lunch thing in for us, and then I went back to talk to a woman in a back room, and her name, I don't remember her first name, but her last name was Arafat, and I never knew whether she was his sister or related at all, maybe. This was never made clear at all. Anyway, both of us, the Pierces, had a great day on their trip, and we had this astonishing day.
Remember what you talked about? Or did you come up with any questions, or you just kind of sit there going,
I wonder if we did. I think we were just sort of,
I'm sure we did, but.
Where else did you go on that trip?
We started in Beirut, and we went to Egypt.
And we went to Saudi Arabia. We went to
I have to do this in sequence, but after Egypt, the Pierces went to Iran, which was not really an Arab country, of course, but they went to Iran and we went to Kuwait, split up there. Then we ended up in Egypt together. Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia.
And that was amazing, because we didn't know how hard it was to get into Saudi Arabia. And when we were in Beirut, we didn't have a visa. So when we were in Beirut, we went to the American Embassy and said what we wanted to do, and we were on a study trip, and we wanted to go. So they said, well, leave your passports, we'll see what we can do. Went back the next day, and we had visas.
People there in Beirut said, you can't go to Saudi Arabia. You can't go.
And in fact, somebody, I don't remember who it was, but he lived there forever, and he took our visas and passports to his company to be sure that we really actually had, they were legitimate. Brought them back and said, yep, seems to be everything's okay. So,
What was Saudi Arabia like?
Well, we went to the Aramco. What was the Aramco headquarters? Arabian American Oil Company. Not Riyadh. No, Riyadh's the capital. What's the name of that city?
we'll think about it maybe, but.
Anyway, and so when we hit passport control there, Aramco immediately took our passports and took them. And they were scared to death of what we might do.
They didn't want any loose cannons running around
to mess up things. And so, anyway, then they pretty much hosted us. They in a sense,
they did.
We went to schools, and we went to health clinics and so forth.
This was a real human development project that Aramco had going there. I mean, they had development going all over that area.
But in order to stay there.
Yeah.
And these Americans, and they couldn't have a they had church services, but they couldn't have any symbol of their faith anywhere. And they met in house, and we found this out, you know. And they, we got to taste some real homemade liquor. They made for the
They made gin in the bathtubs.
like Prohibition bathtub gin, you know. And
So is this when you started drinking? Is this when
no, we started before that. Before that.
What was the impact of that journey on you all?
Well, first of all, we had to do we did a lot of research beforehand, and then we talked to a lot of people going through Europe, getting there, and then this whole thing, we just became so much more aware of the Arab world and the history of how things came to be, which most people have no idea of how these countries came to be, and the influence of the French and the British particularly, and particularly the Middle East, well, North Africa too, and the Italians, and just the dynamics of all of this.
And the whole, you know, we really got inside the Arab, the Palestinian-Israeli thing.
We did not go to Israel, but
The Pierces did.
Pierces did. We went to Kuwait while they went to
No, to Iran. And then we went to Morocco while they went to Israel.
we went to not Morocco.
Yeah. We were in Algeria together, and that's where we went to Libya.
Libya.
You're
We
right.
went to
You're
Libya.
right. We went to Libya while they went to Israel.